There are some mitigating activities, thankfully, out of the White House and the Trump administration. And this is over the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, which is the DACA amnesty President Obama had illicitly given to about 800,000 individuals who were allegedly brought here as children and supposedly have kept their noses clean since, which is a big lie, but I'll get into that later. Now, the problem with that was that that's effectively an amnesty, and that amnesty could only have been granted by Congress changing the law to allow these individuals to remain here and work here and get all the benefits of being here as a legal resident, even if you're not a citizen. But President Obama, despite his repeated protestations that he could not grant such an amnesty, did so anyway after Congress repeatedly rejected attempts to extend amnesty to this category of illegal aliens. And President Trump promised to rescind that DACA policy, and thankfully now it's month 9 of his administration, and he kept his promise, at least in part, by highlighting, and I refer you to the statement by Senator Sessions, or Attorney General Sessions, highlighting the illegal nature of it, and they're going to rescind it. And it's going to be rescinded within 6 months or so. So in the meantime, those DACA recipients will still be protected, but after 6 months, all bets are off. And the president evidently is supportive of a legislative solution, which is the only solution, if there is a problem to be solved here, that would be appropriate under our constitutional system. And that's where people miss the boat. And of course, you have Democrat-controlled states or Democrat politicians in states suing President Trump to try to keep this illegal policy in place. But frankly, they need to be talking to Congress if they want to pass amnesty. Now, one of the things Judicial Watch does is we kind of try to probe what's going on behind policies such as this, especially policies that are on their face illegal and corrupt. And Judicial Watch found that the promises that President Obama made, that everyone would be thoroughly vetted before they were granted this DACA benefit, this amnesty, would be, that promise was baloney. Because we found FOIA documents, and we reported this back in January 2013. So we're not Johnny-come-latelys to this topic. We've been pursuing the rule of law and immigration for years. We filed a Freedom of Information Act request, and we uncovered from the Department of Homeland Security, the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, that they had abandoned the required background checks, and they adopted instead costly lean and light procedures in an effort to keep up with the flood of amnesty applications. So as usual, the government was overwhelmed with applications, and they couldn't rush them through fast enough, so they abandoned largely, it looks like, the background checks. And there are further reports this week that DACA is just rife with fraud. When you hear politicians saying they want amnesty or they want this benefit for the dream kids, first of all, we aren't talking about kids anymore. The overwhelming majority of them, and I mean overwhelming majority, are adults. And they're here in violation of the law. And it's my personal view that any amnesty for that category of people would be inappropriate. Now, I know there are some who want the rule of law and immigration who may disagree, who say, look, you give amnesty to this politically sympathetic group of people, and in exchange we'll get these security guarantees or restrictions on chain migration and chain immigration and a border wall. Well, you know what? If that happens, it would be a miracle. Because never in the history, certainly not in the last 3 decades so of policy, has promised security measures associated with relaxing immigration controls ever come to fruition. And I, for one, don't understand why we would add a new category of people to be vetted as permanent residents or individuals put on the path to citizenship when we don't even know who's coming and going in our own country yet. And the president still was fighting to make sure that terrorists aren't coming into the country. Yet the same, because he's not confident, we've got the systems in place to secure our homeland. But Congress is going to rush, if the establishment has its way, to create this whole amnesty for this group of illegal aliens. And you can say, and they're going to say it's limited. I guarantee in the end it's not going to be terribly limited at all. And as I said, this whole idea about chain migration and immigration, you legalize one person, it allows them to bring others in from abroad as well. And I think just as a rule of law issue, think about it like this. So you tell someone who's here illegally for XX number of years, and some of them are sympathetic, I understand that, that they can bypass the law and the law doesn't matter and they're going to be amnestied. What do you tell the person who wants to cross the border tomorrow illegally? Or more importantly, the person who wants to bring their child across the border tomorrow illegally? To me, this would be the worst amnesty in the sense of encouraging more illegal immigration. And our experience is, you talk about amnesty, even in a limited fashion, it increases illegal immigration. Because it translates abroad as, if I get there, I can get amnesty, I can become legal, and the only thing that's stopping me from not being a legal resident of the United States is that I'm not there. So I just need to get there by hook or crook. And Judicial Watch has exposed that. I remember back in the Bush administration, when George W. Bush was talking about amnesty after he won re-election. The Border Patrol was picking up people and they were questioning them. And I think they were doing a survey as to why they were crossing the border. And many people were saying, overwhelmingly so, that they were doing it because they heard about amnesty and it impacted their decision to cross the border. And the funny thing was, the Bush administration found that out. There was a news report about it. So they stopped asking the question, or they suppressed the information. And Judicial Watch went and got it through the Freedom of Information Act and exposed the fact that talk of amnesty was increasing and encouraging illegal immigration at the border. And that's the danger here. I think, and you know, this is the way things go. If it's going to pass, you're not going to be satisfied if you're concerned about open borders and security and the rule of law. That's just the way the system is set up currently. The numbers aren't there politically to pass good legislation that would secure the borders, restrict immigration and illegal immigration appropriately, while providing this benefit to a smaller number of illegal aliens. So this is a big deal, and I hope that President Trump doesn't really fall under the siren song of these sad stories about these so-called dreamer kids, and stands fast for the rule of law and just making security a priority. You know, and who knows, maybe if we have a border and we stop illegal immigration in large measure, we can start talking about providing some relief for some of these folks who have been here for decades, which is a very small number of people. But don't be fooled in the meantime that what the open borders crowd wants is a limited amnesty. And this is something we have to be on the watch for. And given the political move here that we want amnesty for these dreamers, Judicial Watch will be monitoring to make sure that the rule of law is being enforced. Now, I know one of the things that forced the administration's hands was the threat of a lawsuit by various states to challenge this illegal amnesty that President Trump was continuing for several months. And Sessions, his Attorney General, said, well, this can't be defended. We're going to lose in court. So that caused them to, you know, the politics aside, they were just going to have to let Congress deal with it as the Constitution requires. But if I were one of those states, I'd still sue, because the policy's still in place for 6 months and it's still illegal. And I think in large measure, as I said initially, this is a great victory for the rule of law. I'm glad the president pulled this back. It restores the rule of law in part. It restores better balance to our the balance under our constitutional system where the legislature is supposed to be making the laws and the president, like a dictator, just can't impose them because he can't get them from Congress. But it doesn't mean the fight is over. So we need to make sure the rule of law is enforced in the short, medium, and long term.